Jokes aside, it really feels like the Fast saga is never going to end. Despite all the promises that the upcoming 11th movie will be the final chapter, Vin Diesel is already thinking about making at least 3 more films. Recently, he shared some major updates on the future of the franchise, including Dwayne Johnson's return as Luke Hobbs and the long-term plans for the so-called final installments. Right after Fast X hit theaters, it was confirmed that its sequel was already in development. It's still officially referred to as Fast X Part 2, but most people just call it Fast 11. At the same time, Universal also confirmed that a sequel to Hobbs & Shaw was in the works, although for some reason it seems to be stuck in studio limbo. But that's not all. There have been rumors about another project in development, one that hasn't been officially announced yet, so how many more Fast and Furious movies are we actually getting? That question remains wide open. The Fast franchise has come a long way from underground street races to launching cars into space. Originally, Fast 11 was supposed to wrap up the main storyline for good, but now Diesel has teased that the finale might be stretched across 3 films instead of 2. The issue? Fast X didn't exactly break records at the box office, pulling in $700 million worldwide against a massive $340 million budget. Despite this, Universal still sees value in keeping the franchise alive, whether through spin-offs or solo projects. Even with the more modest returns of the last 2 films, the Fast saga remains one of the studio's flagship franchises. At the very least, we know we're getting Fast 11 and Hobbs & Shaw 2, and that's just the beginning. According to Diesel, the producers are committed to ending the story with the 11th installment, but the higher-ups at Comcast, Universal's parent company, are reportedly pushing for Fast 12. The catch? Any future movies will have to be made on a tighter budget to maximize profits. Diesel also emphasized that he wants to showcase an emotional reconciliation between Dominic Toretto and Luke Hobbs, something that might be difficult to fit into a single movie. So if we take Hobbs & Shaw 2 into account, there's a good chance we'll end up with 3 more Fast Saga projects before the real conclusion. And interestingly, rumors suggest that the budget cuts for Fast 11 could mean a return to the franchise's roots: street racing, customized cars, and practical stunts. Production on Fast 11 is already underway, and Diesel has been actively sharing behind-the-scenes photos. One recent image featured a drift sequence, strongly suggesting that real stunt cars, not just CGI, will be front and center this time. Over the years, the Fast movies have gotten bigger, but also more over-the-top and unrealistic. However, Diesel has hinted that the upcoming film will rely more on practical effects and real locations rather than excessive CGI. He's made it clear, he wants to bring the franchise back to where it all started: street racing. But the plot of Fast X left way too many loose ends. Dominic and his son were last seen escaping a massive explosion, Roman's team crashed their plane, and Letty was rescued by the surprise return of Giselle. With so many cliffhangers, Fast 11 will have to pick up right where the last movie left off, meaning we probably won't be jumping straight into a stripped-down street racing story. And let's be real, Toretto's crew hasn't just been a group of street racers for a long time now. They're essentially elite operatives, pulling off insane, high-stakes missions. Going back to basics sounds great, but it's much easier said than done. The plot has become so complex that just throwing in a few drag races at sunset won't be enough. If the filmmakers really want to bring the franchise back to its roots, Fast 11 needs to include street racing that actually matters, where something important is on the line. In the last few movies, racing has mostly been used as a nostalgic callback rather than a meaningful part of the story. Take Fast X, for example. The race against Dante was just a way to show how ruthless he is as a villain. That's why the final showdown between Dom and Dante should be a race, not just another massive action sequence. If the stakes are high, say, Dom's entire team's lives depend on him winning, it would bring back the intensity and emotional weight of the early films. The perfect ending would be a mix of old-school Fast and Furious nostalgia and the larger-than-life action we've come to expect. And speaking of nostalgia, here's an interesting development. Devon Aoki, who played Suki in Too Fast, Too Furious, was recently spotted on set. Could this mean more old-school characters are making a comeback? Maybe it's another sign that Fast 11 is leaning back into its street racing roots. Letty, Han, Giselle, and Roman could have their own street races, finally getting a proper send-off for their characters, while Hobbs and Shaw focus on the traditional action-packed sequences since racing was never their thing. But the plans for the finale are constantly shifting, not just for the main series but for the spin-offs as well. After the massive success of Hobbs and Shaw, which raked in over $750 million worldwide, Universal was quick to discuss a sequel. Back in 2019, producer Hiram Garcia confirmed that the studio was happy with the results and had already started negotiations. However, the sequel still hasn't been made, mostly because Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham have been tied up with other projects. Then came the announcement that between Fast X and 11, a standalone Hobbs film would bridge the gap. In the post-credits scene of X, Hobbs receives a direct threat from Dante, setting up a confrontation that was meant to be explored in this spin-off. However, since Fast 11 is already in production, chances are this solo Hobbs movie will never see the light of day. It would only complicate the timeline even further, so instead Universal pivoted back to Hobbs and Shaw 2, ensuring it wouldn't interfere with the main saga. Hiram Garcia media confirmed this shift but admitted that progress has been slow. Dwayne Johnson has already pitched his vision for the sequel, calling it the definitive Hobbs story, something that would break away from the usual Fast and Furious formula. He even compared it to the emotional weight of Logan, teasing that this could be Hobbs' last mission. Whether that means going out in a blaze of glory or retiring for good remains to be seen. And let's not forget about the female-led spin-off that was announced years ago, along with potential solo movies for other characters. While there hasn't been much news lately, that doesn't mean these projects are dead. At this point, it's looking more likely that Universal and Vin Diesel will agree on splitting the finale into 2 films instead of just 1. That would allow them to bring back every major character from the franchise's history and, more importantly, give Diesel a chance to introduce another A-list actor as a new villain. Jason Momoa was a solid addition in Fast X, but imagine if they managed to land Keanu Reeves. That would be the ultimate cherry on top of this already insane cast. Reeves has been rumored for years, but since he's never directly commented on it, the door is still wide open for him to join. And then there's Brian. Vin Diesel has repeatedly hinted at the possibility of Paul Walker's character making some sort of return. Brian has remained a crucial presence in the story, even if he's been kept in the background. The franchise has honored him in subtle ways, naming Dom's son after him, showing his GTR. But with the saga coming to a close, it would only make sense to acknowledge Brian in a more significant way. With today's advancements in face swapping, it's technically possible to bring Brian back, just like they've done before, but it's a risky move. Hollywood's attempts at resurrecting actors digitally have been hit or miss, and when it goes wrong, the backlash is brutal. If Universal does decide to include Brian in a bigger capacity, they'll have to tread carefully. Regardless of how it all plays out, Fast and Furious remains one of the longest running and most successful franchises of all time. It's no surprise that neither the studio nor the actors are ready to let go just yet. If these next few movies pull in the numbers, expect even more sequels. At this rate, Fast and Furious might just outlast Avatar in sheer longevity. Stay tuned.